Ye-
What
Yo,
up? What up? What up, man?
hey, 228 CC Smack.
Yes, sir.
We back. Y'all probably was like, man, where those guys? Like, are they still
Hey, I miss
first?
you, bro. I missed you, man. What
You
you been up
did?
to? Yeah, yo.
How much you miss me?
All right, yo. You taking it a little too weird now.
I miss you too, bro.
Man, episode 228. Like we always do at this time, we just want to go ahead and give praise to the man above. Thank you, God, for allowing us to be back, even though we was gone for like a little hiatus.
He never left our life, but
Yeah.
we left the life of the podcast for
Hey,
a little bit.
preach, man. Yeah, man. We want to thank God for all our listeners, man. Just allowing all our listeners to be able to tap back in with the podcast, man.
Yeah, we have an explosive show on the way.
Mm-hmm.
We come in with a return guest today.
Yes,
To
sir.
talk about the car rental game and how you can definitely make your car rental business more efficient, whether you're an entrepreneur, working 9 to 5, whatever you do.
Yeah, but before we do that, we just want to talk about our personal lives. What you been up to since the last time we recorded? Seemed like it's been a year.
Yeah, it's more like about 5 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm preparing for this half marathon, so I've been locked back in with that. With the running, plus it's getting warmer outside. And then really, the car rental biz going good. Yo, it was a cool thing. I actually got a renter. She's from France, first international renter. She picked up the whip, I want to say early April, and she plans to keep it till September.
Nice.
So you love to see, steady flows like that.
Yeah, and I think we could probably get into more of that when we have our guest on.
Yeah,
'Cause,
definitely.
yeah, I think there's more that goes into that when you have a long-term renter, right?
Right. Actually, it's kind of less work, honestly. But yeah, we'll get into that.
Okay.
But outside of that, man, really just surveying the economic landscape and seeing, what's going on, how the feds are adjusting things, and
Mm-hmm.
making sure AI doesn't take my gig. Nah. But outside of that, bro, I'm just happy for the warm outside.
Yeah, man. Same here. I'm just, enjoying the good weather. My
Probably a
health,
little
my
bit too
mental.
much.
I'm doing all right. So last time I think I shared that I had bought a barbershop, and there's a lot of difficulties with getting the barbershop up and running. So I mean, there's the permit side of things, but where do you go to find barbers? You literally got to try and poach barbers. You got to basically go and see what they're paying for their booth rent. And another issue with, I would say, black barbers or just good barbers. A lot of barbers, you can become
Black good barbers.
black good barbers. You can become a really good. You can become a licensed barber through uh, doing an apprenticeship,
Okay.
or you could take the exam. You can go to school and take the exam. Now, what I've heard from different barbers is that exam is very tough. It's not just about, okay, how do you react when cutting your homeboy's hair? It's like, no, how do you react when you have a customer of a different ethnicity and they're telling you to take a few inches off and you've never dealt with that type of hair before? It's about coloring. Some barbers don't deal with some of these stuff, but if you're taking the
Right.
exam, you gotta
You gotta
know
know
all of
this,
that
yeah,
stuff.
to
So
pass it, right.
a lot of barbers are basically that they're not licensed. So the ones that are licensed,
I mean, my barber, he has his license up on the wall. So
they
he like, everybody know.
clear to a barber. Yeah, make sure they have their license up now. But there are good barbers though who don't have a license as well.
Facts.
And the other route is you got to get up to like 9,000 hours, basically shadowing a licensed barber.
Yo, speaking of barbers who don't have that license, did you ever get cuts in the dorm room in college? I did.
Oh, oh, for
Shout out
sure.
my guy Ty.
Oh, for sure,
Freaky Ty used to
man.
get me right with the fade.
Hey, now did he ever become a licensed barber? Did he ever take lessons? It was just a hustle,
He
right?
works in IT. Yeah, it was
Okay.
a hustle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
just a
yeah.
hustle. Yeah, I used to.
I need you right now, Ty. Shoot.
Yeah, man. And I used to cut hair as well. Back in the dorms. I mean, look, a hustler's always gonna find a way to make money.
Right.
But yeah, that's what's going on in my personal life. Just trying to get this barbershop up and running. Outside of that, like I said, man, I've been through the fire, came out unscathed. So I'm
Resilient.
good, man. I'm
Resilient.
good. Well, hey man, let's get into some finance talk, man. What's been going on in the economy? Are we in a
Crazy.
recession yet? They call it a slow session, actually.
So man, yo, all these terminology, this new
Yeah.
terminology, I'm like, man, they just keep moving the goalposts. They just, keep saying what they believe that the American public wants to hear. They don't want any fear mongering or any panic to go on. But I think that people have to really open their eyes and see that the rise in the cost of goods, that and that wages are not keeping up with the inflation, then naturally
Mhm.
you are paying more with a smaller wallet, so to speak, a thinner wallet. And I read an article this week, and put something in perspective about rents. How in some states, they do have caps on the rent increases,
Yeah.
but in other states, it's it's no cap. Excuse me. So that's putting a lot of renters in a tough predicament because there a lot of people, majority of people rent because they have to. They haven't been able to save up a down payment for a home.
Hmm.
What may have you. Definitely check out programs like NACA. Maybe even need to go to FHA route, even though everybody's yelling about interest rates. But going back to the apartment thing is that once your cost of housing is starting to be affected in a way where it's pushing up against your budget, I think that's what can really cause a mass crisis in the country. And I wouldn't be surprised if you start to see people rebel against landlords in the next year or so.
Yeah, but what's the alternative? Like, what if you rebel, but where are you gonna go to?
I think that the alternative is, you're right. The alternative is homelessness.
Yeah, and,
It's
and
tough.
that's why these rent increases are being passed because I mean, what's the alternative? You don't have money to save up for a down payment to buy a house. If you go to the next landlord, it's going to be just as expensive.
I think one alternative would be make roommates great again.
Make roommates great again.
Yeah, I mean everyone talks about how oh, I'm such and such age, I'm too old for a roommate. Well, your finances would say
Like,
something else, where a roommate actually can help you get in a situation where you can get a house, or you can save extra money, or you can have more money to invest on a monthly basis.
yeah, and you're also too old to be having your checks bouncing.
That as well.
But I also think, look, people sometimes have this short-term view on life, because if you were to get a roommate in your 30s, yeah, that wouldn't look the best from an outside world. But I mean, if you stay down for a couple of years, by the time you're 40, that couple of years that you didn't put down with your roommate and you've been saving that money or you've been investing that money, now you're up a few thousand. That allows you to invest more. That allows you to then put a down payment on a house.
Right.
And you're 40, and it's like, who remembers when you was in your early 30s and you had
Yeah,
to shack up?
who cares? Not important. And people also have to remember that optics of having a roommate are not more important than, like Toby said, your checks bouncing, or you having to, live
Hey,
paycheck to paycheck. You gotta skim, money. You can, oh man, I can't do such and such until my next check. And your next check is a week away. You know what I'm saying? So um people really have to make these decisions, and they have to really think about themselves and not about, oh, what how it looks to other people, because you having a roommate will allow you to save that money, where, like you said, 5, 6, 7 years down the road, when your friends are still trying to pinch pennies and scrape up change to pay
yeah,
rent, you've saved up for a home. Now you're building equity, or you could buy a multi-unit home, and now you're living for free, and or getting paid to live there, and you receiving profit over top of what the
yeah.
mortgage costs you.
And look, man, we talk a lot about recessions. In a recession, asset values typically drop. One of your assets, your personal assets, is your mindset, and that's something that you have control over. So recession, non-recession, whatever it is, you have to sustain that mindset of yours, you
Bro,
know.
you just want
So
like Eric Thomas on us right quick.
hey, no, I'm being serious because even
Bro.
when you talk about having a roommate in this certain age, it's about perception from others, right? Like if you're a man, you're thinking, well, shorty gonna think I'm, this, or she gonna think I'm that.
And
When
someone, well, the small minded, and they go, man, I'm not messing with a guy with a roommate.
hey,
And the
look,
whole time they got a roommate or they living at the crib or they, like you said, they check being eaten up by their rental costs every month.
yeah, and look around you at all these deals that have been around for how many years. A lot of these deals are starting to dry up. I do a lot of banking promotions where you open up an account, they give, hey,
Oh, you the king of that.
hey, oh yeah, I've made some good money off of that. But now some of these promotions where they was like giving me 300, they tell me they give me 100.
Yeah.
You go to a lot of these places that are giving you that 18 months 0% APR. It's not on the table no more. A lot of deals are drying up. Look, the interest rate hikes are going
I
to
think
affect the
that comes along
economy.
with like companies tightening up on their credit
Oh yeah,
their lending requirements and things like
no,
that.
imagine this. There were a lot of banks who were who were giving out 30-year mortgages at low rates. Now that rates have jumped so high, a lot of these banks were matching their funding to what they were lending, right?
Right.
So if they had a 3% mortgage, 3.5% mortgage, they were probably paying maybe 2.5%. They were making a little bit on that spread.
Right.
Now that these interest rates go up, the consumer, the person who has that mortgage, is still paying that same mortgage, but their rates are going up higher,
Right.
right? The bank's rates are going up higher. So they got to figure out, okay, hey, how am I going to make up for this
To fill that
difference?
gap. Yeah.
Is it going to be is it going to be hedging? And hedging is getting more expensive. And that's why you see some of these regional banks failing, right? Because some of these regional banks, when these interest rates are going up, it is lowering the value of their assets, but their liabilities are staying the same. So now they have this big mismatch. And that's why you have some of the bigger players like JP Morgan coming in and saying, hey, we go ahead, we go ahead and buy this.
First Republic.
Yeah. First Republic, and there might be some proprietary information. There might be access to a certain type of client. There's a bunch of reasons why a bigger bank might want to take over a little bank. Like they say, big bank take little bank.
Bars.
Yeah. Well, hey, I think we can go ahead and jump into introducing our guests to the show.
Yep. So we have, as we stated previously, a return guest, our good brother from episode 198, Marlon Walls. He's one half of the Money Monopolizers podcast. He's a former mechanical engineer. He's a real estate investor. He's a rental car owner, and he's an overall advocate for financial freedom. He's back today to drop to us the Turo formula. What's going on, man?
What's going on, Josh? What's going on, Toby? Glad y'all could have me on today.
Yes, sir. Happy to have you back, man.
No, most definitely. I was looking at the previous episode. I'm like, man, that was back in 2021. That's crazy.
That's the exact same thing I said to him. I thought it was 2022 at some point.
I thought it was last year.
Yeah, it was November. Yeah, November 21, man.
Look, the beauty about that is, you talked about a lot of things on 198 and a lot of time has passed. What are your findings?
Yeah, because I was just thinking, like, how much did we go through since we last recorded? I'm like, we've been through a whole journey.
Used car prices have skyrocketed.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. So, like as far as like the overall economy, that's one thing in itself, just understanding like the interest rate. I think that's like one thing that we've seen because I think my dad was telling me about one of the car guys that he follows. He talks about like how in 2020 the major thing was all about just the COVID, of course, like just everybody the virus. So people are not traveling because of that. 2021, it was all about the rising prices. 2022 is all about it was all about interest rates. So now 2023 is now combating those things. So it's like it's always going to be something every year. So it's like understanding that there's never going to be a perfect time as far as like within the market, and just understanding like how to adapt depending on what there's certain situation that you're in.
Yeah, I think it was like the perfect storm in a sense because 2021, it was like the chip shortage.
Yeah, exactly.
2022, you come on top of that with the interest rates. So it's like now it's less cars, higher interest rates, and then these financial institutions have tightened up, their requirements or who they'll lend to. So it's like, you sometimes some people probably have to like really look hard to where can I actually get a car when I'm ready to purchase that's actually affordable for them because, like I said,
Mhm.
you get a high price car, with a high interest rate from like one of those, the car dealerships you hear on the radio, or it's like, all right, you go to your mainstay, Toyota, Honda, whatever dealership you want to go to, but it's like you barely see any sedans anymore. Like it's all pickups. Like I
Yeah.
don't know about you, but like I don't. I'm not ready. I'm not ready for the pickup life.
Yeah, no, that's something that we've seen is that as the market has changed, the type of cars that we go after also may change too. Like I was actually so every year there's a show that I go to. It's called the International Car Rental Show. So
Wow.
crazy
Where's
thing is
that?
that
Where's that held at?
it's held in Las Vegas every April. And
Okay.
so this car rental show is not just for Turo hosts, but primarily for independent operators, people who have been in the industry that may have over 1,000 cars. Like
Nice.
I'll just give you like just a snippet. People who show up to this show include Enterprise, Hertz, and Avis. Like
Ah,
those players show up at this type of show. And so I'm able to learn so much just from being in that environment. So think about like if you're a beginning entrepreneur, you're trying to navigate the entrepreneurial space, you may find an entrepreneurship group to join into. I think last time I was on, I talked about the morning meetup.
yeah.
That's essentially what that was. It's like a group of entrepreneurs that are learning how to navigate the beginning phases of entrepreneurship. Well, the International Car Rental Show is tailor made, or it serves as a specific niche, a independent car owner operator that's looking to scale up their overall operation. So there's different vendors that come from all around the world and also that service different parts of the industry. So there's insurance companies, there's finance companies, there's marketing companies, software companies, GPS telematic companies. So all these different all these different industries are all coming to service the same independent operator. So thankfully, I'm able to learn a lot of information about like how they're moving to overall affect how I move also within my business.
No, that's smart. Now, going to a show like that, I think the name of the game right now is risks and risk management, right? Is there anything you learned about just the outlook of the industry and everything that's going on in the economy in terms of, like where are some of the big players seeing this going in the near future?
So a lot of the big players, one thing I've learned first and foremost is that nobody has the answer. Like we can always have
Yeah.
predictions as far as, and
Uh-huh.
everybody has a different prediction. So nobody
Yep.
truly knows where things are going to go. The best thing to do is just prepare. And also they have what's called preventative maintenance. So for their current vehicles, like one thing they've been doing, I know I didn't mention this last time because I didn't know this last time. Understanding how the industry cycles.
Okay.
So
Yep.
also the industry as well as your vehicles. So your vehicles have a life cycle behind them. Like most people who get on started on Turo, this is something I've learned. That's why I say apply a lot of what I learned from them, applying it to Turo. Like the people who are just getting started on Turo, how can I help them out? How can we help ourselves out? Most people think that you're going to get into a car, like you're going to purchase a car and then hold it for, let's say, 2, 3, or maybe even a full term, like a 5-year term. The crazy thing, this is now this is the cream of the crop. This is like the top of the food chain. So they do a little bit differently than everybody else. But Enterprise, the average lifespan of a car inside of their fleet, just take a guess at like how long do you think the average car is in their fleet for?
It's like 1 year,
I would say a
a few
couple of
months.
years.
No,
I would say two.
I think it's 2.
In 4 to 6 months. That's
Okay,
the
yeah.
average
Oh
lifespan of
wow.
a car inside of Enterprise's fleet.
And
Now,
one thing for
independent
sure,
operators,
they're gonna keep you in the same year model when you go to rent.
Yeah.
You're not
yep.
gonna go there and get a 2020. You go there
You're
today,
not yet. I'm about to say
you might get
exactly.
2025 today if you go over there.
Right. And so now because of the industry and how it's tougher and understand that this falls from the top all the way down to the bottom. So it's tougher for them to get new cars right now because there's a lot more demand that's
Yep.
present in comparison to what's in the past. And there's a lot less supply. So because of that, they can't get the same deals that they were getting before. So what they're starting to do is hold on to some of their cars longer. So instead of 4 to 6 months, they may be looking at 8 to 12 months that they're holding their cars in comparison. So now they're considering more, like I said, preventative maintenance. So that they're just looking at how can I keep this car in pristine condition. That way, meaning when it comes back, what do I need to make sure I'm checking to make sure that this car is going to be sustainable for that 8 to 12 months, as opposed to just keeping it for 4 to 6 months. So they're just doing little things like oil changes, making sure they're checking on the brakes, making sure they're checking on what's it called, the tires, just all little things that they're just doing routine checks and maintenance on to keep it fresh and running throughout the entire time that they have the vehicle.
And normally also, with new cars, the maintenance is pretty low. I mean, within the first couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
as long as no one's like driving into the ground, or, kind of, driving the potholes and breaking the axle and all that different type of
Yep.
mechanical issues that you can have. But yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I wanted to ask,
Yep.
from your point of view, what do you think is having a bigger impact on the car rental industry? Would you say car pricing or interest rates? I know both of them can play a part, but is there one that
Right.
is bigger than the other in terms of impact?
So they both impact, and I think both of them together is what causes the biggest impact. Is because you
Mm,
have higher prices, and you have higher interest rates. That affects your ability to scale up quickly. So let's think about it like this. Um, as far as like the cost of a car, so you may have the cost of a car is already up. So let's say if you have a line of credit, and I don't think I've mentioned that before. A line of credit basically is where you have a pot of money. So think about like a pot of money
yep.
where um you don't have to take the entire pot out at one. You don't have to take all the money out of the pot at one time. Instead of you having to take I'm gonna say the line of credit is 100,000. So the pot of money has $100,000 in it. So instead of me doing like a pre-approval where I'm approved for 100,000, but I go buy a car for 20,000, and so now I'm done using that pre-approval. In this pot of money, I can pull 20,000 from that pot, go buy a car for 20,000, and I still have $80,000 remaining inside of this pot that I can now go pull another 20,000 from and buy another car doing the same exact thing. So now I have two different loans from the same pot, but I still have $60,000 left in that pot. So that's what lines of credit are in comparison to pre-approvals, where you go to the bank and get one pre-approval. You buy a car with that pre-approval, but now you can no longer use the remaining balance on that
Right.
pre-approval. So that's the difference between the two. But I wanted to say that because of this point. So the car prices going up means that instead of that car being 20,000, it may be 25 or 30,000. So now I can't. So now my pot is shrinking faster,
Mm-hmm.
and so along with that, the interest rates now make the overall leverage that I'm using a little bit higher. Now the interest is going up
Yep.
more in comparison to what it was before. So now instead of that car costing, well, if, at a $20,000 car, that may normally have like let's say when it was around a 2 to 5% interest rate, the car note may have been around $300 to $400. Now that car note may be $450 to $550.
Mm-hmm.
At $20,000, but now the prices go up to 25,000. That your car note may be looking a little bit higher, like 500 to 600. So you have to be very, very mindful. My entire mantra, this is why I wanted to even bring the point home for this entire conversation, is that buying good deals is the utmost important thing you can do. Like I can't stress to anybody enough, buying a good deal is more important than getting a deal itself. And like that's my entire mantra for anybody looking to get into the business, is like focusing on buying good deals, because if you buy a bad deal, then the cash flow is going to be little, and you still may be paying to sell the vehicle on the back end. So I mean, we can break that down a lot
Well, I was going
further,
to
but
ask you. So, what
just give you
what
some
what
high
is
level.
the criteria of a good deal in your opinion?
So in regards to buying a good deal, for the first and foremost thing you have to understand is this is huge. When do you plan to exit this vehicle? Very
Yes.
first question you should ask before you even buy the car: when do you plan to exit? Because there's a guaranteed day where this car is not going to be a car in your fleet, because nobody holds their cars forever. Like I said, Enterprise and Hertz, they think about this before they even buy the car. They already saying,
Yep.
okay, in 4 to 6 months, this car is going to have X amount of miles on it, and I'm going to sell it for this price. That's how you need to operate as a Turo host even. So when you buy a car, do you plan on holding it for 12 months, for 24 months, for 36, however long you plan on holding it? Identify first off, when do you want to sell the car? Then I love this tip that they gave us. They said, if you plan on selling it in 12 months, as an example, if you're buying, let's say in 2023, let's say you buy a 2-year-old car, 2021, you buy a 2021 model. Now, if you plan on selling in 12 months, you need to now figure out how much this car are going to be worth 12 months from now. So how do you figure that out? The general rule of thumb, look at the previous year model, a 2020 with the amount of miles you expect to have in by this time next year. So the average car may gain 30,000 miles in a year, just like as a rental car. So if I add 30,000 miles to this car, what would be the resulting mileage that this car would have? And so now look at the 2020 model with that same mileage, and that's a good ballpark estimate for you to start with. So now you start planning to say, each payment that I make on the principal of this car, I need to make sure that the principal amount that I owe by this time next year is the same thing or less than what a current 2020 is worth. It's just it's a reverse engineering of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what I was gonna use, reverse engineering, and I like that. Like you said, you don't know until next year comes, but like you said, you can get an estimate using the same time span, a 3-year-old car, which the car will be 3 years old in the following year, and that can give you estimate. Do you ever see when manufacturers release a new model, do you ever see that affecting the resale? So if let's say next year a new model is made, does that affect not a new model, but a redesign? Excuse me, a redesign. Do redesigns have effects on the resale values? Have you ever took time to really kind of take that in consideration? Or
so there's varying factors that can have an effect on the overall price of the car. Just like with Tesla, they had dropped the prices of all their cars. So in situations like that, those are like black swan events that you don't necessarily expect to have happen.
Yep.
So some people, and everybody does feel the effects too. Like I think there was one company that was at the car rental show where they said they bought like a 5-figure amount of Teslas, as far as the number of them. Like they bought over 10,000 Teslas, and they dropped the value of all of them, and literally their entire valuation of their fleet dropped dramatically because of that. So things like that do happen. But like I said, the major thing is just I think in this situation especially, we usually target a little bit older vehicles. Like we never target brand new, just because we're not buying at a discount the same way that these larger institutions are buying it. So when you think about Enterprise and Hertz, they're buying they're not buying 1 or 2 cars, they're buying thousands of cars at a time. So they're getting the best rates from the manufacturers themselves, as opposed to paying at a dealership. So understand that you're paying the marked up price. So they can afford to take a little bit of a hit as far as Enterprise and Hertz in comparison to you as the just general everyday consumer, because they bought at a good enough price. That's why I say buying good deals. When you buy at a good enough price, you can afford for the price to fluctuate a little bit and it still be in your favor, as opposed to if you're paying. I made a video even this past couple of days where you're buying, where you take all the dealer add-ons as an example. So the dealer's job is to sell you the car for as much as possible. They want to sell you the car plus their dealer add-ons to make their profit. So thinking about dealer add-ons, they may have things like nitrogen in their tires. They say instead of us having just regular air, we're going to put specialty nitrogen that's going to allow your car to be able to drive a lot longer without having to get a new fill up. Or we may give you our specialized GPS tracking system that allows you to know where your car is at all times. The thing about it is that I do recommend GPS trackers, but theirs may cost $800. Ours don't cost that much. So that's an add-on for them. Or they may say that they have like a permaplate type of coating on the vehicle that allows that it just pretty much prevents scratches or anything like that. But these things are like extra thousands of dollars, and that's all being rolled into your loan if you were financing it. So now when you're trying to sell that vehicle later, you not only are trying to sell the vehicle itself, but all the add-ons that you've had to that you got included on there that nobody else cares about.
You get pennies on the dollar.
Pay you at premium.
Yep.
Right. So that was nothing but an upsell for you, but nobody else is going to buy it. And you're not going to be able to sell them saying, hey, I got this specialty GPS tracker in the car, so now it's worth $800 more because of that tracker. Nobody's going to go for that.
Right.
So that's the important thing to keep in mind when you're buying cars as a normal consumer, is that you want to make sure that you are avoiding all the extra fees and finding the best price vehicle possible.
So what is your turnover or the lifeline? When do you plan to exit your vehicles?
So for most of our vehicles, we exit in 12 to 18 months. So that's just our general rule. Like we don't we don't like to keep our cars that long either. Really, 12. We're starting to lean more towards the 12-month point at this point because it's very easy to. For one, you're the short. That's why Enterprise does it too, like that. So there's multiple things I'm thinking about at the same time. First off, you have less risk to market changes the shorter that you have the vehicle.
Yeah.
That's first and foremost. The longer you hold a car, the more likely that something can happen. You never know what can happen the longer that you're holding a particular car. Like the market's going up, the market's going down, but the shorter time that you have the car, the less likely it is that you're playing probability, because you can't control what happens in the market, but you can control how long you are in one particular vehicle before you actually jump into the next one. So that's the first one. Second thing is understanding that the longer you do have a car, the more likely it is that there's going to be a maintenance issue that comes up.
Yep.
So that's why you want to get low mileage vehicles, and then you run them up until the point where you start expecting to see some type of maintenance issue. Like I'll give a perfect example is like Nissan Altima, Nissan Sentras versus
the CVT transmission.
Yes, you already know.
Already
like
know.
around that 70,000 mile mark, especially you start pushing out to 80, it's
anything can go.
The transmission at any moment in time may start failing on you. So I dread ever having a transmission or engine related issue in our fleet. So that's why we're very mindful about making sure that we are offloading cars as fast as we're onboarding them when it's time for them to go. So we're just keeping that in mind as far as the mileage.
So speaking of that, do you ever get the added on insurance or like the added on warranty for, major system issues with cars, such as like an engine failure or transmission? Do you ever add on those, extended warranties when you purchase vehicles to protect
so it's really going to
any
depend.
Major failures?
To be honest, like that's actually something I would more so recommend, depending on how long you plan on keeping the car. It all depends on how long you plan on keeping that car for, because sometimes you may not even, because understand that they're selling these warranties to the general consumer. They're not expecting you to be a rental car company that they're selling these warranties to. So you play by a different set of rules than the normal consumer. So when you're getting into the car, you should already be thinking, well, I'm going to be out of this car within this amount of time. So now does it make it worth? And really, I judge a lot of stuff based on our numbers. So there's two numbers I want to look at. Number one is how much am I going to cash flow? And number two, how much does this make this a bad deal? So I'm very numbers driven. So if they're offering me that extended warranty for another $5,000 to $10,000, that might not be worth it, because now I'm going to run my numbers. Because we have an entire deal analysis calculator where we're able to input the numbers that we're buying this car for, and it even shows us how much the car is going to be worth 12 months from now. So if I go back and look at the price of the previous year model and look at and see that it's going to be that my current car is going to be worth less than what if my current car, if I owe more on it than what it'll be worth in a year, then that's not a good deal for me, because now I'll be paying to sell the car. And if I bought that and that warranty made it a bad deal, I'd rather just go find another deal. Because that same car, if it's like a Nissan Altima, there's a billion Nissan Altimas. I can find one that's right at the next dealership that looks just like it and get a better warranty price and be able to make it a better deal for myself. So I'm not attached to any particular vehicle.
Now, how do you account for just, I would say, some one-off market implications, right? Because I think there was a period where you're looking at a used car and the value after a certain year, and it's like, hey, these things are holding up. Do you add any sort of discount to some of your projections just because of the certain environment that we were in?
In regards to like the rent that we were expecting during that time frame?
In regards to, you said you keep a car for what, 12 to 18 months. And some of your research is, okay, well, let me look at the last model and see last year's model and see what that value is. And we know that there were times where, look, valuation was out of whack. That's what I would say, just because of the supply issue. So I'm just curious if you apply any sort of discount or apply any, maybe if if you do your research and you did your research based on what 2021, and it's like, okay, well, that year, you know that, hey, look, there was a lot of supply issues that drove the price up. So maybe I'm going to give myself a little bit of a discount to keep it more realistic. Just curious if you do
So
anything like that.
that's a really good question. So there's a thing called a depreciation schedule or depreciation rate. Excuse me.
Uh-huh.
So this is something that they use in the industry as well. The reason this is so big. The reason that most people end up what's called underwater or upside down on their car note is because of the fact that they don't understand how to depreciate a vehicle. So what does that mean? That means that let's say you got a 60-month loan for a car. If you break those payments down to see like just like a simple calculation, if you break those payments down to figure out how to depreciate the car from its current worth all the way down, well, I guess what you currently owe on it all the way down to $0. Oh, it'll take 60 months to do that. So how much are you paying that car down, like it's a percentage basis? If you did like the same amount per month as far as paying down the principal, what percentage would you be paying it down per month in order to get it down to zero? And the number for that is taking 100 divided by 60. So you're doing 60 months. You want to depreciate it all the way down to $0 worth, how much you owe on it, and after 60 months. So 100 divided by 60 is 1.67. That 1.67 represents how much you're paying down that principal amount per month. So I say all that because when the market is fluctuating up and down, like it has been, like, so if you want to give yourself a discount, I'll actually hit on that point. You want to give yourself a discount. Instead of you paying 1.67% toward the principal, you may pay 2%, or it's like the industry standard is between 2 to 2.5% that you're paying down as far as the overall principal per month on your vehicles. So that way, whenever it's time to sell the car, you're not paying to sell the car. So you may take some of your profit to pay it off, but now you're taking care of yourself on the back end. It's understanding the value of it's putting yourself in a better situation on the back end as opposed to trying to keep all the profit for yourself on the front end. But it's a strategy to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and keeping equity inside your vehicles. If something is to happen, let's say it gets totaled, now you're getting paid out at that exact moment. And so now you've been paying it down good enough to where it's still it's still held its value. So now you're in good shape as opposed to if you were just paying the bare minimum on there.
Gotcha. How big is your team right now?
And so right now we have, I have a whole thing on this. We have 3 people right now.
Okay.
So I guess if you want to say 3, is myself, my dad, and then we also have a fleet manager. So that's why I recommend. Man, see, because I didn't talk about them at all, like as far as employees. I've learned a big lesson.
I think the last time you were like in the process of starting to kind of strategize how you're gonna delegate some of the core tasks.
Yeah, because I haven't talked about the scaling of our fleet at all. Because the last time we spoke was before we even scaled. So I think we had 10 cars when we last spoke. We ended up scaling up to 25 cars, and we got most of those within like a month of time.
Sheesh.
So needless to say, we ended up getting a fleet manager like right away. But I do recommend, this is so important. I didn't know this back then, but I learned now to be able to share with other people. We hired too many people at a time. So we were expecting to gain a lot more vehicles than what we got to. We got to 25, but I was expecting to get to 100. The reason that we didn't is because we had so many things we didn't know about already inside the industry, which is why I said I want to come back on to be able to share the things that I didn't know that will actually help other people start learning how to navigate, especially if they're trying to become an independent operator too. So like making sure I have certain things like my financial statements. That's something that we weren't paying close enough attention to when it came to like going to big time lenders to start getting financing for lines of credit upwards of $500,000. That's what we were starting to ask for. So now they start asking for different types of financials. Most people utilize bank statements. Like when you go to a lender to get a pre-approval, are they asking for financial statements or for bank statements?
Bank statements, yep. Pay stubs.
They want to they want to see the cash flow a lot of time.
Right. So they're asking for bank statements. That's a big difference between bank statements versus financial statements. Financial statements include things like your profit and loss and your balance sheets. Those two pieces of paper are monumental for you to be able to showcase, number one, the growth of your business, or the health of your business, and then also to show to a lender that you don't necessarily need the money because you're already performing well by yourself. But them coming on would be a great benefit for both of y'all, because you show that you're responsible for making your payments and that you're a healthy company that's already grown in a growth process. So like a lot of last year was all spent trying to figure out how to become prepared to start scaling our fleet. So during that time, we had, like I said, we thought we were going to gain more vehicles faster than what we actually were able to. And so that was like one of our biggest lessons from last year. But thankfully, I'm able to, I guess, share that lesson with everybody else now. So that way you can start being mindful about how many people you do bring on at a time. So my personal recommendation is that one person can probably run anywhere between 20 to 50 cars by themselves.
Okay.
If you have a full-time person,
yeah,
somebody working full-time, they can run 50 cars.
Now, did you offer severance packages for the people you laid off? So I know you said you hired too fast.
Yeah, we hired too fast. So thankfully they were able to get they were able to find something else right away. So it kind of just like it was a like we could kind of get them a good enough heads up to where we let them know that they would that we kind of scaled up too quickly, so they were able to get offloaded without, and then transition without having too much of a load time.
Yeah, and I mean that's part of business too. I mean, sometimes you gotta rescind some things, you know.
Yeah, can't boost that unemployment rate, man. Can't be boosting that unemployment rate out here.
Yeah, so we also offer like different different ways to help them out. Like just we had different references for them too in regards like to other rental car companies that we knew about that we would be able to like to send them off to. But ultimately, they were able to find something different for themselves.
Yeah. So the business is working for you. If you have a listener who, I mean, hey, they've heard interest rates going up, recession this, recession that. They're looking for something to give them some additional funds. Is there still an opportunity here? Because I know a lot has gone on, and I mean, some people are saying, you know, hey, with the recession, it's going to dry up certain markets. Can you speak to the viability of the business during a possible downturn?
So yes, I do think there's still opportunity. I think there's always opportunity, but it's all about, it may not look how it did once before. So I think, like I said, the very first thing that I focus on is buying as good of a deal as possible. Like that is literally like 90% of the battle, is making sure you buy a good deal. So if anything, I will be slower to purchase, because once you buy a good, if you buy a good deal, that allows you to now have room to cash flow more, like I said first, and then also on the back end you'll be able to sell it for a good amount. And when it comes to like offloading the car from the fleet, it's all about starting with the end in mind. But as far as the rentability, like the rents are still staying pretty consistent with what they've been, as far as like what you'll be able to make per month from the vehicle. So that's not changing too much. So it's just all about keeping in mind that there's not as many good deals out there. So that's why it's very important to analyze them before you get into the deal. That way you avoid buying the bad deals just as much as you try to find the good ones. So I have a saying that I say all the time now: I'd rather have no deal than a bad deal. And so like that's our entire program. That's highly what we focus on, is just buying a good deal. So we go through entire analysis processes, show how to use our deal analysis calculator. We actually even have weekly calls that we do with our students, just to continue to show them like this is an example of a good deal, this is an example of a bad deal. Like that's literally where all the emphasis is placed at now for us, because we understand like the difference that it can make for you and your overall journey if you jump in. Because I remember seeing a lot of people when we first got started in the industry, people were like, yeah, I'm trying to scale up super quick, I'm trying to get like 20 or 30 cars in the first couple months. I strongly advise against it, just because you don't know what you don't know, and so you don't know if it's a good deal or bad deal. So I'd rather have a slow grow type of thing as opposed to a try to get rich quick that type of thing,
right?
Because that like another thing I say is that ignorance is magnified at scale. So I'm gonna say it again: ignorance is magnified at scale. So if you don't know what you're doing, and you start trying to buy a whole bunch of cars when everything is not a good deal, or like it's not as easy to find a good deal, then you could very well find yourself having to pay to sell 70 to 80% of that fleet. So you don't want to be in that situation. That's why you want to focus the most on trying to buy the best deal possible. That's where a lot of our emphasis goes into.
No, I like that saying, man, because that is so true. Like
Yeah.
you think about some of the practices that you have when you didn't make X amount of money, and you could get by with that, but then you become bigger, you scale up, and those mistakes, they start to show themselves a lot more, and
And the
the
more
losses, the
costly.
cost,
Yeah,
a
more
lot
much
more
more
costlier.
costly.
Yeah, nice. Well, hey, so you've already talked about how there's not really a perfect time, right? In terms of like, okay, when to buy a car. Is there a wrong time? If there's not a perfect time, is there a wrong time to buy a car, to buy a used car?
So is there a wrong time? I think there may be better alternatives. So I would say like this really applies a lot as an independent operator. So this is a clever thing that I saw when I was at the car rental show. They mentioned one of the guys that works for a Six rental car. He mentioned how at this moment in time, he was buying more like mid-sized vehicles, like a mid-sized SUV. This is like a free gem for y'all. So as an independent operator, you don't necessarily rent individual cars. So the thing about on Turo, when you're going on Turo, you're looking for a particular car. You're looking for, I want a Chevy Camaro, and I want that exact one from this person. So when
Okay.
you rent as an independent, you usually don't rent like that. You usually don't give somebody the exact car. You usually rent them by vehicle class, like economy, compact car, mid-size sedans, full-size sedans, things like that, and also like mid-size SUVs, crossover SUVs, so on and so forth. So because of where the car prices are for the sedans right now, he actually looks more towards mid-size SUVs because they are almost comparable. They're pretty comparable right now. So the reason that he does that is because if you can buy a, let's say, a Honda Accord for 25,000, and you can buy a Chevy Trailblazer for 25,000 or like 30,000, a little bit more, 25, 30,000, then he'd rather buy the Trailblazer. And what he's going to do as he rents it out as an independent operator, or as just a car rental agency, he can list that same car in every vehicle class that is mid-size SUV or lower. So if somebody books a economy car, he can still run out that same mid-size SUV, and just say that instead of you getting instead of you coming to get that sedan, I actually gave you a free upgrade. And
Right,
so now
right.
you got a 6 or 7 seater instead of getting that 5-seater sedan. And people are usually okay with it. They're like, okay, great. I got a free upgrade. I know y'all ran out of sedan, so y'all gave me the SUV for the same price as the normal sedan. But
What
now
about
that
the people who
increases.
say, "Hey, man, now I'm chugging more gas out the gas tank, man. I was looking for something, 40 miles per
You
gallon in
yeah,
the
you'll get
city."
some pushback every now and again, but for the most part, that helps out a lot as far as people's willing, or that helps out as far as for your utilization. But every now and again, you will get that pushback. But that allows you to start displacing that car into multiple different categories. So somebody may book like I said, full size sedan. They can book a mid size, book a crossover. It doesn't really matter. So he'll be able to apply that car to multiple places. But you still do have, like I said, the normal sedans. You just don't have as many of them as you did once before. And
Nice.
it's all about just being mindful about what the profitability. I think that's the biggest thing too. Look at the profitability of one car versus another. So it's like this car may make you in cash flow $100 a month, but this other car over here may make you $500 a month. And I'm talking about in cash flow, like after all expenses are paid. So you start going after more of the ones that have a larger profit margin as opposed to others. And then you just like in this case, as an independent operator, you can start applying those cars to other vehicle classes if you need to if you're trying to get a higher utilization rate.
Yeah, and you can teach people how to do that, right? Because I think
Yeah,
it's,
exactly.
yeah, easier said than done, and it might be a daunting task for somebody who's just jumping into the market or jumping into the business for the first time this year. So I just wanted you to let the people know where they can reach out to you if they want to learn more about how they could then, become an independent fleet owner themselves, or if they could just, follow your journey and get motivated by that.
Yeah, most definitely. So on social media, both on, especially like on TikTok and Instagram, you can find me at Deuce Walls. That's UCEWALLS. I post content on there all the time, just in regards to our journey, as well as just making the transition from Turo to an independent operator. And then if you want to get into our program where we teach you the step-by-step process about how to start on Turo the right way, from before you buy to after you buy to automating and maintaining, you can go to theturoformula.com, and that's where you'll be able to gain our entire program, where we have, like I said, the 3-step module, as well as our community group. Our community group is called Rebus Crew, where we like I said, we meet every Monday. And we also do have a Facebook community where you're able to gain daily value as far as like how to become a better overall rental car owner. You can answer questions. You can get questions answered from other industry experts. We bring on people that are inside the industry. Like I said, I went to the car rental show. A lot of those people that I've met there, they're able to be like affiliates for us now, where they're able to come in and share their value and be able to help these newer rental car owners scale into the independent space with the right resources right away, as opposed to having to figure it out by themselves.
Awesome. And yeah, we'll be sure to put that link in the bio when we release the episode as well, so people will be able to find it there.
Now, I got one final question I want to ask, because there might be some people who might have the same question.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference from somebody who is operating on Turo versus an independent operator?
Ooh, man, that's a good question.
You can't call the 1-800 number. I was out in California when something wrong.
I mean, because you still have some cars on Turo. You still have cars on Turo, right?
We operate on both sides. We operate on both.
Okay.
So we've done both. We're still doing both right now.
Okay.
But that is a great question, because there are some differences that you have to keep in mind. So understand, as an independent operator, you now assume the things that Turo was doing for you.
Yep.
That's the biggest thing I can say. So now you have to identify, what is Turo doing? Because they're doing more besides taking money from your profit margin. They're doing way more than that. There's a reason that they're taking that amount. So one thing I would say that you should really get a strong understanding of is the claims process. Because when somebody damages your car, how do you get reimbursed? Because on Turo, all you do is it's like telling your parent, hey, somebody so-and-so hit me at school. They come up to the school and they're gonna handle it for you.
Right. Yeah.
Versus as an independent operator, if somebody damages your car, you now have to go you have to go through the claims process with their insurance company if you got their insurance. Hopefully but you have to understand like the things to do before you even get started with the rental in order to protect yourself on the back end. Everything is all about prior preparation. So making sure that all your ducks are in a row on the front end. That way on the back end, if something that was to go down, you have processes in place to be able to handle it when it does occur.
Nice.
So insurance is one of them. Marketing is another one. Turo is your marketer, meaning that they are getting leads for you and they're just bringing them into you. They're the middleman platform that connects people who need a car to people who have a car to rent. So they're doing their marketing for you. So now you have to become your own marketer. You have to figure out, how can I find people who need a car from me, and how can I get in front of them? So that's another aspect of renting as an independent, as opposed to renting through Turo. So I think those are two of the major ones. There's still a lot of others, of course, but those are definitely.
Gotta up that marketing budget.
Yeah, you have to identify having a marketing budget in general, like understanding like the different forms of marketing, or the different avenues that you can bring in people into your business. Like you have to know those type of things, and just understand that if you're trying to attract a customer, like what does it take to get them into your world, and how do you retain them afterwards? All these different things are important when you become an independent. So there's definitely more layers to it, and so there's more profit margin, of course, as far as like how much you can make per car, because understand that Turo is not just charging what you charge for your rental. You may charge $40 a day for your car, but the customer is actually paying maybe $70 to $80 per day after Turo charges all their fees. So you're understanding, what fees are they charging? Why are they charging those fees? Things like that. Like, what is Turo doing? Because once you really understand that, then you'll be able to understand how to implement that for yourself in your own independent operation.
Nice. Okay. Oh, thanks for breaking that down.
Yep.
All right. Well, it looks like it's definitely been a great episode 228 here. Marlon Walls, he has the Turo formula for you. The Turoformula.com, that will be in the bio of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Any last comments you want to leave?
Hey man, if you're looking for me, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter. That's at LongLiveTobe. That's it for me.
All right, gonna look for me. It can be found on Twitter and Instagram at Josh D Lifestyle. And as always, we appreciate everyone for tuning in to our show. Yeah, I mean, get them cars on the road. It's summer's coming. The demand is definitely increasing. The COVID, all that, the fiasco is over. People outside.
They outside for sure.
And when people travel, they need cars because they not taking their cars with them on the plane. So
yeah. And like Marlon said, you know, there's opportunity here, but it definitely involves you being strategic. So just make sure you're not rushing into anything. Make sure you're thinking through all your decisions. And you also have somebody who can guide you through this process. So make sure you're also reaching out to Marlon through the links that he's provided.
Because when you rush, that's how you end up with a lemon. And in this case, you can't turn. In this case, you ain't turning that lemon into a lemonade.
Hey, talk that. Well, hey, man, episode 228. It's been a pleasure. Everybody be safe. Till next time. Peace.